On March 23, 2021, an uncharacteristically fierce sandstorm swept across the Suez Canal. 40-knot gusts hammered a 220,000-ton megaship. The Ever Given struggled against the blinding winds and shifting desert air. Its crew battled to steady the vessel, but the storm proved too much. The towering wall of containers caught the gale like a sail, twisting the ship sideways. In seconds, it became lodged in the canal, and with it, $9.6 billion in daily trade ground to a halt. The Ever Given had become a 400-meter wall of steel, its bow driven deep into the eastern bank, stern pressed against the west, severing the world's most vital shipping artery. The global economy held its breath as 369 vessels formed a maritime traffic jam visible from space. Every hour meant another $400 million in cargo stranded in the desert. But in that moment of global paralysis, salvation came from the most unlikely source: a single 1990s excavator and the 28-year-old man who operated it. This was the story of how a Komatsu PC200, a machine built for construction sites, became the hero that saved international trade. The Komatsu PC200 wasn't supposed to be here. Nearly 30 years old, this 20-ton excavator was designed for digging foundations and moving earth at construction sites. Its specifications were modest: a 0.8 cubic meter bucket, 110 horsepower engine, maximum digging depth of 6.5 meters. Against the Ever Given, a vessel that could carry 20,124 containers stacked like a city skyline, it looked like a toy. But machines, like people, sometimes discover their true purpose in moments of crisis. When Abdullah Abdul-Gawad received the emergency call on March 23, 2021 at 7:42 a.m., he was told, "You're the only excavator driver who's close enough." What they didn't say was that he and his Komatsu would be facing down a vessel so massive. Its length exceeded the Empire State Building's height. The Ever Given sat wedged diagonally across the canal, its bulbous bow driven 6 meters deep into the eastern bank's compacted sand and rocky riprap. Its 220,940 tons of dead weight had transformed the shoreline into concrete. The ship's own 79,500 horsepower engine was useless. Its twin bow thrusters couldn't generate enough force. This wasn't just stuck. This was geological imprisonment. Standing beside his yellow Komatsu PC200 in flip-flops, Abdul-Gawad surveyed the impossible scene. The excavator's cab barely reached the waterline of the massive ship. Its bucket, designed to move perhaps 50 tons of material in a good day's work, now faced the task of excavating 27,000 tons of compacted earth and stone. The thing is, I was terrified that the ship might list too far to one side or the other, Abdul-Gawad later admitted. Because if it fell onto its side on me, then it's goodbye me, and goodbye excavator. But the Komatsu PC200 had advantages that billion-dollar dredging ships lacked. It could work in the shallow, confined space where the bow met the bank. Its hydraulic arm could reach under the bulbous bow, where no other equipment could operate. Most importantly, its tracks could navigate the unstable ground that would swallow wheeled vehicles. The excavator began its heroic work, its hydraulic heart pumping 2,000 psi of pressure through steel veins. Each bucket load, seemingly insignificant against the mountain of sand, was precisely placed to create a rubble bridge, allowing the machine to venture closer to danger. The Komatsu's arm extended, contracted, twisted, and pulled in a mechanical ballet, its operator and machine moving as one entity. What followed was one of the most remarkable feats of endurance in maritime history, both human and mechanical. The Komatsu PC200 ran for 21 hours a day, its diesel engine roaring continuously in the desert heat. The hydraulic fluid temperature gauge climbed into the red zone, but the machine refused to quit. Its bucket teeth, designed for perhaps 2,000 hours of normal operation, ground against rocky material that would normally require specialized mining equipment. The tracks, caked with tons of mud and sand, kept turning. By day 2, the world had discovered the tiny excavator. Photos went viral, showing the Komatsu dwarfed by the Ever Given's hull, a mechanical David facing a steel Goliath. Memes proliferated. The internet mocked the futility of one small machine against global catastrophe. Everyone was just making fun of it, Abdul-Gawad recalled. And that was what made me so determined. The criticism only made the Komatsu dig harder. When two newer excavators arrived to assist, their operators took one look at the precarious position, directly under a ship that could shift and crush everything beneath it, and refused to work in the danger zone. The PC200 continued alone, its yellow paint now grey with dust, hydraulic hoses straining but holding. The mathematics seemed impossible. The Komatsu PC200's bucket held 0.8 cubic meters. To remove the 20,000 cubic meters of material trapping the Ever Given meant 25,000 individual bucket loads. Each scoop, lift, swing and dump took 30 seconds. That's 208 hours of continuous digging, except the Komatsu did it while coordinating with tugboats, dodging dredging operations, and working in conditions that violated every safety protocol ever written. Working alongside the excavator came massive reinforcements. The dredger mash hour could remove 2,000 cubic meters per hour from the canal bed. 14 tugboats arrived with combined pulling power exceeding 400 tons. The Dutch Alp Guard brought 285 tons of bollard pull. The Italian Carlo Magno added another 153 tons of force, but none of it mattered without the Komatsu's preparation. The rocky material binding the bow couldn't be sucked away by dredgers or pulled free by tugboats. It required mechanical excavation, bucket by bucket, stone by stone. The PC200 was literally the only machine on site that could do this critical work. Without an excavator, the ship wouldn't have gone anywhere, Abdul-Gawad stated with hard-earned authority. It might still be stuck. As the Komatsu dug, the global economy hemorrhaged. The Suez Canal normally handles 12% of global trade, $1 trillion annually flowing through this narrow channel. Each day of blockage meant $9.6 billion in delays. Container ships carrying everything from coffee to computer chips formed queues stretching back to the Mediterranean and Red Sea. The pressure was crushing. But the Komatsu PC200 had entered what operators call the zone, that state where machine and human merge into a single purpose. Abdul-Gawad could feel every vibration through the control sticks, sense every variation in soil density through the bucket's resistance. The excavator had become an extension of his will, and his determination had become the machine's soul. For 6 straight days, the PC200 battled physics. Its boom extended to maximum reach, testing metal fatigue limits. Its bucket pins endured forces they were never designed for. The turntable bearing that allowed the cab to rotate screamed under loads that would have warranted immediate shutdown under normal circumstances. But this wasn't normal. This was the fight for global commerce. March 28th brought what many called a miracle. A rare supermoon swelled the tides, pushing an unusually high surge of water through the canal. That rising tide alone wouldn't have been enough, but it arrived at the perfect moment. For nearly 144 hours, the Komatsu PC200 had clawed at the earth without rest. It carved away rock and sand, transforming the eastern bank into a canyon where solid ground had once trapped the bow. Inch by inch, it removed the obstacles that locked the vessel in place. More than raw muscle, it had created what no tugboat could: space for the ship to move. At 5:42 a.m. on March 29th, the Ever Given shuddered. The stern, loosened by dredgers and lifted by the tide, began to swing. The bow, freed by the excavator's relentless persistence, finally tore itself from the bank, and at 3:05 p.m., after 6 days and nights of paralysis, the 220,000-ton vessel floated free. The tugboat captains erupted in celebration. The dredging crews cheered. But at the excavation site, Abdul-Gawad and his Komatsu sat in exhausted silence. The PC200's engine, after running almost continuously for 6 days, finally went quiet. Its hydraulic systems, pushed beyond all design limits, could finally cool. The tracks, clogged with tons of debris, could finally rest. The minute we saw the ship sailing off, it was like the tiredness evaporated, Abdul-Gawad remembered. The Komatsu had done the impossible. A 20-ton excavator had freed a 220,000-ton ship. David had defeated Goliath not with a sling, but with a 0.8 cubic meter bucket and Japanese engineering that refused to fail. The numbers tell only part of the story. Yes, the Komatsu PC200 helped avert a crisis that could have cost hundreds of billions. Yes, it cleared thousands of tons of material no other machine could reach. But its real achievement was proving that in an age of mega machines and massive scale, sometimes the smallest hero makes the biggest difference. The image of that yellow excavator against the Ever Given's hull has become immortal, a symbol of determination against impossible odds. For those who understand machinery, it was something more. The moment when a decades-old construction excavator, obsolete by modern standards, became the most important machine on Earth. In March 2021, when global trade hung by a thread, that thread was a hydraulic hose on a Komatsu PC200. The excavator that was never supposed to be there became the machine the world couldn't live without. Because when 369 ships are waiting and $400 million in cargo sits idle every hour, you don't need the biggest excavator. You need the one that won't quit.